To achieve a top score in CELPIP listening, you need to understand each and every part of the test. In this video, we will look at every CELPIP listening part so that you will know what to do on test day. So, how many parts are there in CELPIP listening? Well, there are 6 parts. The first is problem solving. Part 2 is listening to a daily life conversation. Listening part 3 is listening for information. In listening part 4, you'll be listening to a news item. In part 5 of the test, you'll be listening to a discussion. Part 6 of the listening test is listening for viewpoints. In total, the entire listening test lasts about 47 to 55 minutes. But before we get to the first listening part, be sure to click that subscribe button for more great CELPIP videos. Okay, the first part of CELPIP listening is listening to problem solving. In listening part 1, you will listen to a conversation and answer questions. Listening part 1 takes about 8 minutes. In this part, there's a dialogue and questions that are split into 3 sections. There are 8 questions in total, and each question is multiple choice. Let's find out what the first part of the listening test looks like. You will hear a conversation in 3 sections, but you will only hear each section one time. After each section, you have to listen to and answer 2 to 3 questions. First, you will read the instructions that will give you some idea about the topic. Then, you will listen to the first section of the conversation. In this example, the instructions say, you will hear a conversation between a woman and a man. The woman is a host at a restaurant. The man wants to arrange a dinner for a group of colleagues. Then you will listen to the first section of the conversation, which will involve a problem and someone helping to solve the problem. Then you'll hear the first question. You will only hear the question. You won't be able to read it. To answer the question, you need to select one of 4 multiple choice options. You'll have about 30 seconds to choose the best option for each question. Remember, in the actual test, you can't click back. So make sure you answer the question carefully before selecting next and moving on to the next question. The question may ask you about things like the main ideas or gist, someone's attitude or feelings, specific information that was expressed, or details that you can infer from what was said. Sometimes the multiple choice options may be pictures rather than words. After answering the first 2 to 3 questions, you'll listen to the second question of the conversation. This will also be followed by 2 to 3 questions. Then you'll hear the final section of the conversation and answer the remaining questions, up to question 8. Here are some tips to help you do well in listening part 1. As you listen to the conversation, try to identify which speaker has a problem and what they need or want. Also, listen carefully for the speaker's advice or suggestions. Make sure you note down the key information. Remember to listen for gist, people's attitude or feelings, specific information, and anything you can infer. Be sure to read the 4 answer options carefully. If you don't immediately know the correct answer, you can narrow down the options by eliminating the incorrect options. If you're still not sure of the answer, make sure you still select one of the remaining options. You won't be penalized for incorrect answers, and there's a chance you could get it right. Great. As you can see, this test requires practice. Check out E2 Test Prep for high-quality practice questions. Sign up for free at e2testprep.com. Link is in the description. Let's take a look at part 2 of the listening test, listening to a daily life conversation. In listening part 2, you will hear a conversation and answer 5 multiple choice questions. In this part, there's a dialogue that is about 1.5 to 2 minutes long. You hear the audio only one time. Then there are 5 questions. Each question is multiple choice. In total, listening part 2 takes about 5 minutes. Let's take a look at what you'll see on test day. First, you will read the instructions that will give you some idea about the topic. Then, you will hear a conversation for 1.5 to 2 minutes. The conversation is supposed to be a typical interaction about everyday topics you might hear between 2 coworkers or neighbors. After that, you will hear a question but not be able to read it, but you will be able to see the multiple choice answer options. In this example, the instructions say the conversation is between 2 coworkers. The man had a health scare. Then you will listen to the conversation and find out what happened to the man. Take notes on the main points as you listen. Then you'll hear the first question. You will only hear the question. You won't be able to read it. And you will only hear it once. To answer the question, you need to select one of 4 multiple choice options. You have about 30 seconds to choose the best option for each question. Remember, in the actual test, you can't click back, so make sure you answer the question carefully before selecting Next and moving on to the next question. In this part, you will need to listen for the main ideas in the conversation. You will also need to pay attention to major turning points in the conversation, like when questions are asked, because you'll need to pay close attention to the answers. Also note that some of the ideas from the conversation will be paraphrased in the answer options, so the exact wording may not be the same. This means you need to read the options carefully, rather than just looking for key words. Here are some tips to help you do well in listening part 2. As you listen to the conversation, try to identify the situation, which means who the people are, where they are, and what they're talking about. Try to listen for the main ideas the speakers share. Make sure you note down the key information. Remember to listen for main ideas, major turning points in the conversation, and be aware of paraphrased ideas. Be sure to read the 4 answer options carefully. If you don't immediately know the correct answer, you can narrow down the options by eliminating the incorrect options. If you're still not sure of the answer, make sure you still select one of the options. You won't be penalized for incorrect answers, and there's a chance you could still get it right. Great! As you can see, this test requires practice. Check out E2 Test Prep for high-quality practice questions. Head to e2testprep.com to get started. Let's move on to part 3 of the listening test, listening for information. In listening part 3, you will listen to a dialogue and answer questions to show you've understood what was said. In this part, there's a longer dialogue that takes 2 to 2.5 minutes. You'll hear the recording only one time, and then there are 6 questions. Each question is multiple choice. In total, listening part 3 takes about 6 minutes. Let's find out what you'll see on test day. First, you will read the instructions that will give you some idea about the topic. Then, you will hear a conversation for 2 to 2.5 minutes. In the conversation, one of the speakers has specialized knowledge that they are sharing with the other person. After that, you will hear a question but not be able to read it. And then the multiple choice answers will appear, and you will have 30 seconds to choose the answer for each. First, you will hear the conversation. In this example, a woman is asking a music shop employee for advice about how to start learning the guitar. He provides specialized information about different types of guitars and other equipment she might need. Then you'll hear the first question. You will only hear the question. You won't be able to read it. To answer the question, you need to select one of 4 multiple choice options. You'll have about 30 seconds to choose the best option for each question. Remember, in the actual test, you can't click back. So make sure you answer the question carefully before selecting Next and moving on to the next question. In this section, you need to be able to follow the sequence of events in the conversation. Listen carefully to recognize the key facts that are given. Then, when answering the questions, use your inference skills to work out which option you think is correct based on the information you heard. Being able to identify incorrect answers will really help you in this part so you can narrow down the options. Here are some tips to help you do well in listening part 3. As you listen to the conversation, try to identify the specific knowledge one of the speakers has and listen carefully for information and details. Make sure you note down the key information. Be sure to read the 4 answer options carefully. Remember, you may need to infer some answers. If you're still not sure of the answer, make sure you select one of the options anyway. You won't be penalized for incorrect answers, and you never know, you could get the correct answer. That's it for part 3. You're halfway done, you're doing great. Let's have a look at part 4 of the listening test, listening to a news item. In listening part 4, you will listen to a news report and respond to a few questions to show your comprehension. In this part, there's one speaker giving a news report that takes 1 to 1.5 minutes. You hear the news report only one time. Then there are 5 questions that you will see all together. You will have about 3 minutes to answer these questions. Each question is multiple choice. In total, listening part 4 takes about 5 minutes. Let's take a look at what you're going to see on test day. First, you will read the instructions that will indicate the topic. You will then hear one speaker giving a news report on an interesting occurrence or piece of community news. The report will last about 1.5 minutes. In this example, the instructions say you will hear a news item about an unusual rescue. Then we hear a report about a man who fell through ice into a lake and was rescued by a dog who was passing by. Then you'll see and be able to read 5 questions that appear together. Each question is an incomplete sentence that you need to complete with one of the multiple choice options. You'll have about 3 minutes to answer the 5 questions. In this section of the listening test, you really need to be able to distinguish the main ideas from the less important information. You also need to be able to reconstruct events. That means listening carefully for time references so that you can understand the sequence of events that are being described. And as always, taking notes is vital in the listening test. Be sure to listen for extra details about each point that you note down, as that may be important in order to have a full understanding of the information. Here are some tips to help you do well in listening part 4. As you listen to the news item, try to identify the main points of the story by listening for what happened, who was involved, when it took place, and where. Also, listen carefully for the order of events. What came first or second? Make sure you note down the key information. Remember to listen for gist, specific information, and what the result might be. Be sure to read the 4 answer options carefully. If you don't immediately know the correct answer, you can narrow down the options by eliminating the incorrect options. For any answers that you're still unsure of, remember to still select one of the options. Your guess may be right, but even if it's not, you won't be deducted any marks. Let's take a look at listening part 5, listening to a discussion. In listening part 5, you will watch a video of 3 people having a conversation and answer questions to show that you've understood what was discussed. There's a video to watch that takes 1.5 to 2 minutes. You will only see the video one time. Then there are 8 questions. You will see all 8 questions at once and have about 3 to 4 minutes to complete all of them. Each question is multiple choice. In total, this part of the test takes about 6 minutes. Let's take a closer look at what you'll see on test day. This is what listening part 5 looks like. First, read the instructions. In this example, the instructions say you will watch a discussion among 3 coworkers. They are discussing an upcoming department retreat. Then you'll watch a video and listen to 3 people have a discussion for 1.5 to 2 minutes. In this example, the 3 coworkers discuss activities they'll do during their work retreat and how they feel about them. You should take notes while you watch the video, and be careful to distinguish between the different speakers by what they look like, what they say, and how they feel. Then you'll see the 8 questions, which are questions with a drop-down menu for the 4 multiple-choice options. The questions may ask you about things like the main ideas, specific information that was expressed, the opinions of the speakers, or details that you can infer from what was said. As this part is a video, watching for visual cues is important. This will help you distinguish between the different speakers. Visual cues, such as the facial expressions and body language, can also help you to identify the opinions and feelings of the speakers. And as always, be sure to take notes, as you will only be able to watch the video once. Here are some tips to help you do well in listening part 5. As you watch the video, try to identify which speaker has a problem, idea, or suggestion. Pay attention to what they are wearing or their location, as the question may ask something like, "What did the man in the hat think about the meeting?" Or, "Why did the woman on the left disagree with the policy?" Also, listen carefully for the speaker's advice or suggestions. Take notes as you watch the video. You could make 3 separate columns for each of the speakers to keep their information separate and organized. Remember to listen for main ideas, specific information, people's opinions, and anything you can infer. Read the 4 answer options carefully. If you don't immediately know the correct answer, you can narrow down the options by eliminating the incorrect options. If you're still not sure of the answer, make sure you still select one of the options. You don't get marked down for incorrect answers, and you never know. Your guess could be correct. You made it! Here we are, part 6 of the listening test. Stay sharp. This part can be pretty challenging. In listening part 6, you will listen to a single person expressing an opinion on a topic, and then you'll answer questions to show you've understood what was said. In this part, you will listen to a monologue, a single speaker, that lasts for about 3 minutes. This speaker will give a report in which they express 2 or more viewpoints on a social issue, which may involve some complex ideas and vocabulary. You will hear the report only once. Then there are 6 questions which you will see and have about 4 minutes to answer. Each question is an incomplete sentence that the multiple choice answers will complete. Listening part 6 is the longest part of the test, and it takes about 8 minutes. Let's take a look at what you'll see on test day. This is what listening part 6 looks like. In this example, the instructions say you will hear a report about the impact that social media has on its users. In the example, the speaker mentions 2 different people who have different opinions on the topic. So in this case, you would need to take notes on the names mentioned and each person's main viewpoints. Then you will see all 6 questions together. The questions are incomplete statements that have a drop-down menu to choose from and 4 multiple-choice answers to complete each sentence. In this part of the listening test, you will need to listen carefully for main ideas and people's opinions. You will also need to be able to understand some abstract or complex ideas, so make sure you're listening very carefully. Remember that the statements will often paraphrase the ideas that you've heard. So you need to be able to recognize the same idea even if it's expressed in different words. You may also need to infer an idea based on what is said in the recording. You may not be told everything directly, so you'll need to use your reasoning skills. So, let's look at some tips to help you do well on listening part 6. In the report, the speaker will present an issue that people disagree on and will usually mention 2 or 3 people who have different opinions on the topic. So listen carefully for the names of each person mentioned and their point of view. Make sure you note down the key information, even if the ideas seem abstract or complex. Remember to listen for main ideas, people's opinions, and anything you can infer. Be sure to read the 4 answer options carefully. Remember to always select an answer, even if you aren't 100% certain, as you won't be penalized for incorrect answers, and you have a chance of getting it correct. An educated guess is better than no answer at all. That's it. That's everything you need to know about CELPIP listening. But this is only the beginning. Now you're going to need high-quality practice questions, and methods, and expert teaching, and all of this is available at E2 Test Prep. Click the link in the description below to sign up for a free trial so you can get the CELPIP score you want. My name is Mark, and I'll see you soon.